celebrate the arrival of November and the fall colors. This is actually Letchworth State Park, where I'm from in New York. So really beautiful rural area. So thanks for being here for our Rural Connect call. If you would, please update your name, which I have to do as well. And we're going to have a couple of presentations today. So in the chat, we would love for you to introduce yourself with your name, your ecosystem, and your experience level with asset mapping. Are you a novice? Do you consider yourself an expert? You've got some tips and tricks to share today? Or are you like me? They're like, I've used Google. So welcome, Dan and Casey. We're super excited to have you share today. We're gonna also have an opportunity afterwards to, share any upcoming ecosystem opportunities. So please be sure you can drop those in the chat as well. I'll share out the notes from the meeting afterwards. And then any featured resources you also may have for asset mapping. So again, welcome Dan Duncan, who I found on Google and researched his asset mapping tool and invited him to present. And he said yes, so never hurts to ask. And then Casey's gonna share from the Arizona STEM ecosystem on Google Maps. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. Oops, this slide, don't need this one.
All right, so am I jumping in?
You are, it's all yours. Go ahead and share your slides. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right, I will do that. Whoops. Give me a second here. I forgot the wonders of Zoom here. All right, can you see my slides now?
Yes, sir.
And you can hear me. All right, jumping in. Asset mapping and the asset mapping toolkit. First, a little bit about me. I'm a senior consultant with Clear Impact, which is a high-tech consulting firm that helps people use data for data-driven decision making. In addition, which brings me to the asset mapping toolkit, I've also been a faculty member of the Asset-Based Community Development Institute at Northwestern, was at Northwestern, now at DePaul University. And I've done a lot of work around how do we identify the gifts, the assets, the skills, the resources that are available in a community to bring everything together, to work together, to do that and build better communities, etc. And I got my master's from Arizona State University, and I spent almost 30 years as a United Way professional. So that was my work. And I was an adjunct faculty at 3 different universities and schools of social work. So that's kind of a little bit about me. And I live now in Florida, just north of Tampa Bay in Hudson, Florida. So what I'm going to talk about, sort of why community engagement and co-production and why that's so important as a starting point, just to kind of talk about how we need to connect with all the resources, the people, the individuals in a community to truly do our work. Is I have a story around it. And so often we think of our work as a marathon. Really, it's hard work. We're doing a lot of hard work, and it's kind of like a marathon, 26.2 miles, 44.4 kilometers. And one of the ways to think about it, if we only have the professionals, the people doing the work, actually the people that are paid to do the work, if you will, running in the marathon, and the community is at the finish line, waiting for the professionals to come across the finish line and save us, or whatever you want to think about in relation to that, the community's been waiting a long time, and not very many of the professionals can get across the finish line because they run out of energy, they take a wrong turn, they lose a grant, something happens along the way. So what we need to do is turn that single runner marathon into a relay race. And if we turn that into a relay race, we can actually, the professionals can pass the baton to the community to do those things that they can do, and they can pass it back to the professionals to do those things that only they can do. So if we do that and we turn this into a relay race with everybody running in the race, we have a much better chance of getting across the finish line. So that's kind of the framework that has driven my work, is how do we make sure we're getting everyone around the table doing this work as a relay race. And so what we think about in that context is community engagement and co-production through the power of asset-based community development. So how do we make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be a co-producer of their own and their community's well-being around education, the work you're doing, all of those kinds of things. There are resources and connections that you can make in the community. So asset-based community development, for those that haven't heard of it, was developed by these two professors that were in Northwestern about 30 years ago, Jody Kretzmann and John McKnight. They developed it, and what they did is when they were at the university, they were in a department that was doing a lot of work in the community, and all the research was around the needs. They were doing needs assessments. They were looking at all the problems and the issues in the community, and they thought there must be a better way. So they put together a research team went into low-income neighborhoods throughout North America to identify those low-income neighborhoods that were doing better than those that were struggling. What was different? What was unique? And what they found was those neighborhoods that were doing better were focusing on what can we do with what we already have to get what we need. They were focusing on identifying all of the resources they already had and using them, because it's the capacity of local people and their associations that build powerful communities. What can we do with what we already have to get what we need? So that really drove to asking two different questions. Not what do you need, but what can you contribute? And not what do we need, but what can we do with what we already have to get what we need? So how do we build these kind of connections around a community? So what they identified is there were 6 key assets that were available in those low-income neighborhoods that were being used by the residents. First of all, the local associations that were in the neighborhood, the local institutions that were in the neighborhood, but they weren't just taking from the neighborhood or just meeting needs. They were really connecting with the neighborhood, the businesses, the governments, the nonprofits. They were being supportive of the neighborhood and what it was doing. Also, the land, property, and the environment, using that strategically, the economic strengths, the economy of the neighborhood, which could be bartering as well, culture and stories. And then the first one, for some reason, is not on my slide there. I apologize, was the skills and abilities of the residents themselves, because everybody knows how to do something, how to build something, how to teach something. So really utilizing those skills to move forward. So because effective communities look inside first to solve problems, they don't wait for somebody from the outside to solve them for them. Relationships are seen as power, because that's how we connect and work and build that power, is through relationship. They have a good sense of their assets and capacities, not just their needs. Leaders open doors. Leaders are good connectors, not dictators. They really know how to connect people. Citizens are involved, and what we mean by citizens are people that are engaged in sharing their gifts, as we call them, in the community. People, their gifts of the head, hand, and heart. Gifts of the hand are practical skills people have, like fixing a bike, cooking, gardening. Gifts of the head are things people have knowledge about, things they want to, are willing to teach others. And gifts of the heart are their passions. What drives them to action? What gets them up 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning is their passions. And so we want to make sure we're connecting people based on their passions. One of the problems with a lot of activities is we recruit volunteers. We think of the term volunteers, and typically we're recruiting volunteers to do our to-do list. We decide what we need done that we think volunteers can do. We recruit the volunteers, and then we have to spend all our time trying to figure out how to motivate them to get them to show up more than once. Rather than focusing on their gifts, what they care about, what their passions are, and then just get out of the way and let them do things. So to help do this, and just one last thing, and then we're going to jump into the asset mapping toolkit, is there really 3 roles that residents can play in a community. One is sometimes they do need to be a recipient of a service. If they break their leg, they need to go to a doctor. They don't want their neighbor to fix their broken leg. So there are times when that's appropriate. And then also people as advisors for institutional action. Sometimes we put together advisory committees and all of that, but that's typically to advise institutional action rather than helping them get involved. So the third role is that of a producer, a co-producer of their own and their community well-being. In that case, we ask the new question, not what do you need, but what can you contribute? So that's how we build the connections in a community is understanding the right role that people can play. So now asset mapping. So asset mapping is about discovering everyone's gifts and passions, and then asking them to share their gifts around their passions. And then the most powerful thing we can do is connect people with the same passion to act collectively. So that's what the toolkit is about. And again, you can download this from our website, the toolkit. But what it is, it's a strategy to identify the assets that are available from within the community, however you define that geographic area. And it's a process for connecting and engaging people. It's not just a list. It's not a database. Potentially you could do that, but that's not the main purpose. The real purpose of asset mapping is a process for connecting and engaging the community to come together. And it must be done by the residents themselves in the community. They need to lead the effort. It can't be done from the outside, but it needs to be led by people that have the relationships already in a community to get started. So the basic steps are, first of all, what we mean by engaging the community, it's not an opinion poll. It's not about organizing the community to care about your agenda. It's about identifying what individuals care about and their gifts and mobilizing their action. So if you're going to work with neighborhoods, communities around your agenda, don't try to convince people, just try to find the people that already align with what you're interested in, what you want to do, and help them become part of the solution. So and again, how do you engage people? Focus on the gifts of their heart. Don't ask them to do things they don't care about. Quick story about that, just to give you a sense. In our neighborhood, we're going to do a neighborhood cleanup next Saturday. We invite 100 people. If we invite 100 people to the neighborhood cleanup, how many are going to show up? Put it in the chat. How many do you think? Out of 100, how many are going to show up? 30, 150 out of 100? I'm impressed. Well, you guys are a couple of you are very optimistic. I see some 10s there. That's the usual number I get. So 10 to 20. So we'll say 20 people show up at the neighborhood cleanup, and somebody will say those other 80 people, they don't care. That's not true. They just don't care about the neighborhood cleanup. So on Saturday, if we said we were doing the cleanup, plus we're going to build the dog park, and we're going to work with kids, and we're going to do some other things, we're going to start the community garden, a lot more people will show up. So you really want to focus on the gifts that people already have and their passions to help drive your action. So here are the basic steps in the toolkit. So you start with building that resident mapping team there to define the geographic area you want to map, and then find some folks in the neighborhood that want to lead that effort. You want to look for people that have a history of being connectors, or people with a lot of relationships. Put together a small group, 8 to 10 people is fine to do that. And then get a big piece of paper, put it up on the wall, and have them draw their initial asset map of the neighborhood. And so what they'll put in there are the institutional assets, the physical assets, the churches, the schools, the agencies, the parks, etc. But typically they don't put people in there because we don't think of people as being an asset in a neighborhood or a community. So once we have that, then we have to develop a survey. We got to go talk to people. And so you've got to start with a survey. And so we actually did this. This is based on work I actually did in Phoenix, Maricopa County, in South Phoenix. Did it for the health department. This is what we did to create this whole process to help build connections around health issues in South Phoenix. And so what you want to do is create a survey, and then you want to go talk to people. You don't want to just put it on the web or hand it out at the church in the back, put it in the back of the church for people to take as they leave, because we want to build relationships and connections. So the neighborhood team, they do the snowball interviewing technique, where they each, first of all, interview each other. So now we've got 10 surveys completed, asking people, what are your gifts? Gifts of the hand, head, and heart. What do you care about? What are your passions? What associations do you belong to? And who else do you know in the neighborhood you'd be willing to interview? Because this process is based on, first of all, the group interviews each other, then they each go interview 5 to 10 people in their neighborhood they already know, and have a relationship with, because if you don't have a relationship with somebody, you can't ask them what their gifts are. They're going to go, if I knocked on your door and said, what are your gifts? What are you going to say to me, right? So you talk to people you already know, and then you ask those people, would you be willing to go talk to 5 to 10 people that you know? So through the snowballing technique, you can generate very quickly 100, 200 questionnaires completed with thousands of gifts. And then what you do, the next step is map those people and their gifts. And you map them by their gifts, by their passions. So you can use, in fact, in one area, they use those colored sticky dots. And, you know, if you cared about kids, it was red. You cared about safety, it was green. Cared about hunger, it was yellow. Then you put them on the map of where they live. And you can see this is actually a map in Phoenix. And so you put those on there. And then what you do is connect people with the same passions to act collectively. These 3 people cared about kids. Let's connect them. And if they don't know each other, ask them to do something, sharing their gifts. These people cared about hunger. They're going to start the community garden, etc. So that's how you create community connections. And the last step is celebrating your milestones. So you really want to make it fun. So when you start the community garden, have a party. Do something else, have a party, celebrate and connect. So let me stop there. I know I probably went a few minutes over. I apologize. But any questions or comments?
I think it was incredible. We were chatting in the chat box. I thought your presentation was clear, but we would love to take any questions from the group, or you can post them in the chat. And Dan, you can definitely share out. We shared your presentation. I know a couple of people are like, oh, can I get a copy? So I've already shared that out as well. But
awesome.
yeah, if you'll stay on for just a few. And
absolutely, I'm glad to.
Yeah, let's have Casey and Claire present about another way to do this using technology tools. And you know, the good old poster board is a great opportunity, but boy, we've learned so much about this Google Map. Casey, go ahead.
Yeah, so we're really excited to talk about how to create a custom Google map. And this is something that actually is new to me. Casey was just telling us about this earlier this week and my mind was blown and I'm so excited. So we're going to tell you a little more about what they are. So custom maps are something that you can create using Google Maps. And basically you can search for locations, add them to a map, and then save them. So that way other people can come find your specific highlighted locations that you've already marked in your area. So here's an example of kind of what they might look like. You can have different icons for different things so that it's easy to see what's on there. And they're just a really cool option to sort of highlight what's in your area, sort of the hidden gems, help people find the stem that's around you. So one cool tool about this is you can create map layers, which basically sort the locations that you find into categories. So you can give each layer a different icon, you can give it a different color. Here's an example of one that we found that's, you know, someone's creating a map of their town and they've got their little dining out, all the restaurants they like, their little cafes and bars. And so you can see them all together on the map. And it's a really cool way to kind of sort and make it visually easy to understand. Once you have built your map, you can share it just like you would any other Google Doc. So you can add collaborators, you can hit share and get a link. You can put it on a website or on a Facebook page or something like that. And you can actually make it searchable on Google too. So if you name it something specific and people know what to look for, then they can just type that name in Google and it'll pop up. So we're going to go through some slides about how to make it, just so you have the steps, you know, written down somewhere and you can have the presentation afterwards. But then Casey's going to do a little demo for us and then we'll have some time for practice and we can all start making our own sort of ecosystem map. So the first thing you'll do is just open Google Maps and click their little map icon, and then you'll follow these steps to create a new map. And it comes up in My Maps. So you can give it a name, you can give it a description, you'll make your categories, which are called layers so that you can figure out how you want to sort them. You can set it so that everything in one category has the same icon or the same color, or you can give them totally different icons depending on what you want. And then you'll click the layer that you want to add a location to and just search. There's a little, like a regular Google Maps search bar at the top. So you can type in a specific location, like here I typed in the Science Center, and then you'll just click the little add to map button. Or so you don't know a specific place that you want to add, you can search like high schools, or you can search museums or libraries. And just like you would on Google Maps, it'll pop up with a couple options and you can look through them and then see what you want to add. You can change icons and colors using the little paint bucket icon. You can preview it to see how it'll look, and then you can click share to send it out. So I know I learn better when I can actually see somebody doing it. So now we're going to have Casey do a little demo, and then we'll have some time for practice.
Hey everyone. So let me share my screen. Every time I go to share my screen, I'm shocked at how many windows I have open. So I just want to give a quick shout out to my dad, because he is the one who figured this out long before I did. And so this is my inspiration for using Google Maps, which is my dad's map of campgrounds. And I wanted to show you because he figured out how to put in pictures. So you can put in pictures, you can put in descriptions. So if you have something like an event map where you show where STEM events have been held, you could upload pictures of the events that are happening. So here's a demonstration map that we made of Graham Greenlee in Arizona. It's in Eastern Arizona. And as you can see, we created a couple layers. So post-secondary, libraries, K-12, museums, and after school. And each of them, we selected a different icon with a different color. And you can see that all in here. So this is what it looks like sort of for the public. And then actually when you're in the map as one of the sort of creators of it, you can go in and add things. So let's say we're gonna do, we'll do another K-12 education. So you go in and sort of select whatever layer you have. I'm just gonna type school in Safford. And then you can go ahead and add it to the map that way. And you can see, now it pops up and it has its own little icon with the little school icon that we decided, and it'll be in here. The other fun thing you can do is we have a map where you could sort of change these colors. So if you wanted to do K-12 education, but within the layer, you wanted to do middle school's yellow and high school's green, you can go ahead and do that as well. The other kind of cool feature of Google Maps that I think is a really fun activity to do. So this is something that we did with our students. So this is just Google Maps I open where I live in Mesa. But you can do, I think, something really fun where you can do the search nearby feature. So maybe I'll go over to our office. Oh, it doesn't show up on here. 6. So this is where we work. You can send us mail now that you know our address. And there's a search nearby feature. And I think this is super interesting because I think, there's, at least I am a creature of habit. So if I, live in Mesa or Phoenix, or when I lived in Flagstaff, I'll sort of go to the same places over and over again. I'll find a place that I enjoy, it's a place that I feel comfortable, and I'll tend to sort of be a repeat visitor at that place. But for example, I could do search nearby museum, and the Gallery of Scientific Exploration, is something that I didn't know was near us. We have, I don't know if it'll show up, the Hall of Flame Fire Museum. I went to ASU, I lived in Tempe for many years, and I had no idea that there was a Hall of Flame Fire Museum. So this was something that was really fun to do with our students. We had a group of students come together, and each of them sort of had a stakeholder group, and they would pull up their school on the map and then find the nearest museum to their school, the nearest park to their school. and then sort of figure out one way that they could connect with that museum or that park or another partner school based on sort of proximity. I see that there was a question. Oh, I see that there was a question. Okay. Oh,
The suggestion of how, if it's more of a program and it's offered in many areas, is there a way to, it has to be a pin drop, if I remember, on Google Maps.
yeah. So the interesting thing, so let me, we did not build this into this map, but there's sort of a bunch of different things you can do here. And so one of the things right now, each of our layers is a, it's all the same sort of icon, but you can actually go in and you can choose a style by a data column. So right now we had built this into Google, like we had built it with Google Maps. And so there's just sort of a name and you can add a description. But you can also upload a table. And so the really cool thing that you could do is if you wanted to add another column, and you could do like program audience, for example, and then you could do, you know, K-12, you could do high school, you could do adult, and then you could actually go in and you could color code within the layer. Let's see, so now let's do program audience. Ooh, so many things. Oh, okay. So you can do labels, you can add the program audience. So we were talking about, when we were talking about doing this with some of our STEM ecosystem hubs, we were sort of having a similar conversation of, you know, how do we share what resources people have available, right? Like what if there's a company that they will table at an exhibit, or there's a company that has a guest speaker that's really interesting. And so we talked about sort of, you know, potentially you can add a layer of guest speakers in your area, or you could go in and within a layer, you could sort of do some fun color coding or different icons. So, I mean, you could spend 5,000 years on this map, but I think it's really fun. Like I said, we did this with our students a couple years ago, and each sort of student team made their own school ecosystem. So they had their school on the map, they had the closest partner school, they had, like I said, the closest park, the closest museum, the closest library, and then they were able to sort of visually on a map see all of their sort of STEM assets come together.
That's incredible. Yeah, I was just thinking from what Dan shared, you know, I wanted to, you know, help you guys see the connection that I was thinking about, this idea of your relationships you're building or these talents. Like here's all the people who love gardening, and you can make a layer for gardening. You could, and also plot all the school and community gardens, or maybe here's the people who love painting. That's one of my things, right? And they want to paint the brick walls because we have a lot of block walls. It's not very common in rural, but excellent. Well, again, we're nearing that half hour. I don't want to keep those who have to jump, but we'll stay on if you have any additional questions or comments. We definitely want to say hi to everybody. If you have anything specific to share out, we would love to hear from you. Just put it in the chat and I'll give you a shout out. But comments, questions, thoughts?
Is this being recorded so we can watch it again? Because I could not type fast enough.
Yes, I will put it in the resource Google Drive. I'll share the video. Excellent. Oh, Dan, do you know Deb Wisniewski? Is that how you say that?
Yes, I know her very well. I've been a faculty member at the ABCD Institute with her for many years.
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody, I will go ahead and go get the video prepped. And I think if anybody is interested in next month, broadening engagement is our topic. So if anybody has any tips or tricks, we'd love to have you share out from your ecosystem.
Right.
So
Just remember, focus on the gifts of their heart.
I loved that. That was so powerful. Like, what a
All
great
right.
message I picked up.
All right. See you all. Bye-bye.
Aw, your favorite gathering. That makes my heart happy. Yeah, so awesome. You're welcome. Have a great rest of your day.